Hey, Richard, welcome to the SABM podcast.
Thanks, Scott. I appreciate you having me, and I'm excited to be here, man.
Yeah, I think maybe you're the first appraiser we've ever had on the podcast. Appraiser turned real estate investor,
That
turned
probably does,
technology
yeah,
founder.
that probably doesn't shock me. A lot of appraised. I don't know. It seems like everybody knows a broker or a realtor, but not that many people know appraisers, and so we tend to kind of keep to ourselves. But the way that we've kind of iterated and developed new companies and new verticals within the real estate space, it's kind of trying to get out there a little bit more.
Yeah, excited to learn more about how you ended up to where you are today. And so it's been great getting to know you more in the 10X Vets group. And so thank
Mhm.
you for being a part of that. And then you've presented to the investor group, the SABM investor group over the years. And so, but yeah, it's been great getting to know you over the years and learning about your business. Um, and so your two companies, so Falcon Capital
Mhm.
and Valuation Pro.
Yep.
Would love to kind of learn a little bit more about what they are and how you got into real estate investing after starting as an appraiser.
Yeah. So, like my dad, I grew up around real estate. So real estate's all I've really kind of known outside of the military, right? Kind of in the business world. Um, Heck, even when I was in the Air Force, it was still business because I was a contracting officer. And so it was still, you know, in the business space, which really transferred over well. But my dad started an appraisal company back in the early 90s. And, so I kind of grew up around real estate and valuations and appraisals and stuff like that. And so we were always, or he was always looking for investment deals. He owns several investment properties. We own a couple as a family together, kind of thing. And so it was when I got out of the Air Force and moved back as an appraiser in the family business with my dad and my brother. After a couple of years and really kind of um, learning the space and honing my craft in the appraisal world, we were like, okay, what's the next iteration that we can do to kind of really grow and scale and use this knowledge now that we have and this expertise in valuations and property values and being around investments and being a part of investments both in real estate and kind of other investments as well. We wanted to an area where we could provide that access and that knowledge to as many people as possible, and really kind of create a place that was transparent, integrity, a lot of same core values we had in the military, in the real estate investment space. And especially what we found is so many uh, investment groups out there have such high minimums that a lot of people are excluded from being a part of those and have a hard time getting into the real estate investment space till much later in their life. And so what we wanted to do is create an opportunity for people that we had opportunities within Falcon Capital where people could get in with lower minimums just to start getting into the real estate game, and into the real estate investments. And so that's kind of where Falcon Capital came from, and we've kind of grown that now from we started out with just individual apartment complexes, but now we've grown into being co-GPing and really providing, capital to developers or on the general partnership side who may have really good existing institutional grade investor relationships, but trying to do two or three big projects at a time. They have sometimes a hard time coming up with the 5 or 10% that the GP typically commits to those deals. And so we've come in and kind of created a almost a niche space where we now help get money together for the GP side of these investments, which has been a lot of fun. And a lot of people from the 10X Vets community have participated in that with us, and it's been really good so far. But uh, and then Valuation Pro, which is kind of our newest venture, um, that we started last year. What we were looking for and realizing our appraisal business that we have is it just kept getting more and more competitive because the appraisal industry does really well when the real estate market's doing really well or really bad. But kind of when it's just kind of moving along, it gets really competitive because there's not as much transaction activity or people doing refinances or sales or closures or whatever. But so we were looking for a way to really drive the efficiency of our appraisal business, either to provide quicker turn times, and reduce fees if we needed to, but really quicker turn times, which then, helps everybody, helps lenders get deals done, helps investors underwrite projects if they need appraisals. Um, and so we set out to solve that appraisal problem around how do we get faster with that. And what we realized is we also solved the valuation problem. So
Mm.
not just for appraisers, but for any, real estate investors, real estate brokers, lenders, um, even potentially tax assessors where they need valuations, but not necessarily a full appraisal. You know, what we've built now, the underlying infrastructure and the underlying um, is all the same. So we're able to provide MAI kind of level valuations at a fraction of the cost and a fraction of the time where we're, targeting to turn them around in under an hour, um, for valuations on any commercial piece of property and then residential sometime next year. But um, so it's been kind of really, really interesting, and we've learned a lot, because we aren't software people. We're real estate guys and real estate appraisers, but we've got a really, really good partnership around us and a really good team around us that are specialists in the technology space who have um, who've been great to get to know as people as well as partners, and we've learned a lot on how to develop technology and develop software. And so we think we've got something really special.
Yeah, sounds like it. And I've got a lot of questions on the Valuation Pro product. Kind of before we get to that, so as an appraiser, what was your bread and butter type of appraisal? Like
Yeah.
what deals or what types of properties were you guys? And I'm sure it evolved over the years as well,
Yeah,
but
so it's definitely evolved. So when I first joined the appraisal firm back in, the mid 2010s, 16, 15, 16, 17, somewhere around there, it was, you know, your strip centers, your, office buildings, office warehouse, industrial, um, medical office, kind of your standard commercial building that you see driving down the road, retail buildings, stuff like that. And so, but it evolved into over, I'd say, the last 3 or 4 years, kind of really kind of more niche valuation type work. We still do that. So we have a division that still does that commercial
Mhm.
bread and butter, normal commercial valuation work. And so um, that's always, I think, going to be the foundation of the appraisal world and the appraisal space. But now we've done everything from subsurface minerals, so like mines, mitigation banks, historic buildings. We've
Hmm.
uh, now doing like solar facilities and solar farms, which we'll see those may go away completely here before too long. But I would definitely say the mines is one of the more interesting ones that we started doing, to where my brother even wrote a book around how to appraise subsurface minerals.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
The riches are in the niches.
that's right, man, for sure, no doubt. So, and we've gotten to work with some pretty cool people and some pretty cool groups through that, which has been fun.
And so, and then geography, is it like there's there a specific geography that you guys focus
I
on,
mean,
or is it?
obviously, so being from Georgia, obviously we started in Georgia, but then then it grew to the southeast, and now we're licensed collectively, I think, in like 35 states or
Oh
something
wow.
crazy. I mean, we've done stuff for the Air Force in Alaska and, in Maine, and so we've kind of worked everywhere. And, a lot of places, uh you can get temporary licenses pretty easy. There's some that are harder to get, that we make sure we keep and maintain certifications in those spaces, because we don't want to go through the process of getting those again.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. So, probably after doing all of those appraisals and learning that skill set, and what a great skill set then to, bring to your, investing business, and obviously your valuation pro business. But I would imagine that I would have started to get like itchy or whatever, like wanting to do deals, like, seeing that, wow, like, what are you buying this for? Because this is what this appraised for, and just like
Oh
wanting to
yeah,
do the deals yourself.
for sure. Yeah, and I mean, in part of our certification, or part of our ethics in the appraisal space is like we have to certify that we don't have an interest in the property that we're appraising. But it's certainly helped us realize, okay, what markets are ripe for investment, through
Mhm.
the growth in the market studies and where values and cap rates specifically are at, which is, but I think one of the things that's been most helpful is really knowing brokers are lying to you around stuff, and their OMs and things of that nature, or not necessarily lying, but painting too rosy a picture potentially, because we look at this stuff every day, and so we really understand where cap rates are in the market or should be, what expense ratios are really coming in at or need to be at for underwriting. And I say, so that's probably the big one, that and the rents. Um, but we see a lot of times expense in our investment side, right? Expense ratios from pro formas and things like that may not be kind of in line with what we've seen on the appraisal side. And so, that's been really helpful for us when we look at deals and underwrite deals, around that. And, the appraisal market gets really busy when people can't service the debt and foreclosures start to happen. And so through that, we've learned, in Falcon Capital, our investment arm, that we don't really ever take on short-term debt, period. It's just not something that we do, because we've seen kind of what can happen with those. And we've actually got some opportunities right now on our investment side to pick up some distressed assets who took out, some bridge debt and short-term debt where they're kind of upside down, which we'll see.
Yeah, yeah. And then and Valuation Pro. So is this like right now focused, at least the first iteration, on commercial properties? I think that's what you said. And then you're,
Yeah.
okay. So
So the first iteration is focused on commercial property. So we have the framework and the MVP out there for appraisers now, that's being used and tested, and feedback from appraisers on that software. And now we're really kind of implementing, software and technology and AI into that process, to really be able to drive really fast valuations that are really high quality. And so the commercial is the focus for this year, where we're going to have a product out there, targets to have a product out there for valuations by the end of the year, and then to do residential next year.
and who's the customer for, I guess maybe just so for the commercial
Yeah.
iteration, who's the one, like who do you imagine as like the user?
So we've talked to a lot of like county assessors, tax assessors who are very interested in the product, investors. So we've talked to several investors who like, yes, I need this for my underwriting and due diligence. You know, you know this too, Scott, right? How many times have you analyzed or looked at a deal and you're waiting for your underwriting or your due diligence to come back, or you go out and try to get evaluation or appraisal from somebody, just as a sanity check, right? Like, hey, are we in line with what the market's gonna be at? Are we paying too much? Are we paying too little, kind of thing? And so investors are a big piece of that, to not stall deals and not stall transactions. Um, yeah, so brokers, investors, assessors, and so those are kind of the three main targets, as well as appraisers, obviously. But that's a different kind of platform that they would be on.
Yeah, and walk us through how it works. So let's say that there's I don't know, a commercial real estate investment company, and they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, Richard, I love this product," and walk us through like how they would use it.
Yeah, so really kind of simple. So they would log into an investor portal, and they would put in some pictures, they put in the address, maybe a few characteristics about the property, condition, quality, just something kind of really simple. And then they hit go, and the software will go out. It will pull comps from its own internal database. They'll go out and grab new ones. It'll kind of make some adjustments, because we're training it based on our MAI kind of level logic around what those look like, and analyze the market and the trends, and even, potentially right around where the, income drivers are going to be, so that they can get something that looks similar to an appraisal report. It just doesn't have like an appraiser signature or an appraiser certification to use as their due diligence, where it's going to give a kind of a value range for that property in, an hour or less, pretty much.
Yeah.
And so they'll be able to use that for their underwriting or their due diligence to make sure that everything lines up around kind of where it's going to appraise at.
Yeah, that's yeah, super helpful tool. I mean, it's as much help as you can get, right, to figure out. And I guess the other thing too is like how fast it probably
Hmm.
operates, right? It's you
Yeah.
know,
I mean, it's crazy. Our goal when we set out to do this was to do the majority of a commercial appraisal in like 2 or 3 hours, right? And then what we realized is a lot of those things that require kind of appraiser specific knowledge or appraiser engagement aren't needed for the valuation side. And so we can really drive that efficiency and that time even lower to where you can get valuations in, a few minutes, or, complicated market, maybe a little bit longer. But still, if you can analyze that many more deals in a day, in a week, in a month, that really helps the investor, you know, not waste their time on certain things that they may go further down the road on doing due diligence and underwriting on.
yeah. And what's standing in the way between where you are now and launch? What's left to be done?
Yeah, so we are a couple of patents filed around what we're doing and kind of that valuation engine. And so we're at the point now where we're looking to get some outside investors and outside capital together to really accelerate that. I mean, we could, potentially do it ourselves. It would just take a little bit longer to do. And so now we're looking for really accelerant and gasoline for the rocket ship and the fuel to really get it out to market here in the next, you know, 6 months or less.
All right. Cool. And what would you say? And I guess then how do you spread the word? Because this, right, this is
So
like a whole
yeah,
different business than the
I mean,
the real estate
for
investing, right?
sure. And
So
so, yeah, so you're actually in the SABM group. People on this pod are the first ones to hear about it outside of like our immediate circle, um, because we've tried to be very strategic around what we're doing because of what we can kind of see it might do to the market. As far as disrupting or wowing, or whatever you want to call it, the market. But we try to be very strategic around it, and so we haven't really spread the word yet. We're going to our first conference in September to show kind of what it can do, and that'll be kind of the most the coming out party around Valuation Pro. So we're really excited about it, especially here the next 60, 90 days even.
yeah, well, that's real exciting. And what would you say? So your three different, I guess the three different businesses that you're involved in. So Valuation Pro, which we talked a lot about today,
Hmm.
Falcon Capital, and then are you
Keystone
still going to do
Valuations.
the appraisal business, or
So
is your
I mean, I don't like, yes. I mean, so I haven't really been running that one day to day in almost a year. We brought in some really, really good executive team and executive leadership, and that one kind of runs on its own. And so I don't really do much in that space. That's kind of more my brother and our executive team. I'm really focused on Valuation Pro and then the investment company. But I have a really good team around me on the investment company too. So we have a really good rhythm, and it's been really nice to have the bandwidth to really kind of focus on Valuation Pro. But long term, my goal would be to my passion is really in the Falcon Capital. Like, I love the real estate investment space and working with people and investors and stuff like that. And so, but to either sell or exit or IPO or something like that, Valuation Pro, and then um, either kind of get just do the Falcon Capital stuff full time or hang out with you, Scott.
yeah? Well, that'll give you more money
That's right.
to, to,
Absolutely.
to invest in deals, right?
Yeah.
Well, good. And what would you? Yeah. So then you just kind of laid out your long term goals as well. It sounds like Falcon Capital is, a business that you're really super passionate about. And the cool thing about Valuation Pro is it helps you probably at Falcon
Hmm.
Capital because this is a technology tool that you can leverage to become a better investor and make better
For sure.
decisions.
Absolutely. Because we look at every investment deal that we do on Falcon Capital through an appraiser's lens anyway, as well as an investor's lens. And so that's kind of how we are kind of like secret sauce, I guess, if you will, around the deals that we do is through that lens. And so this tool will just make that even more efficient and quicker and allow us to kind of look at where we need to dedicate our time and our resources to really diving into from an investment space.
All right. Well, how can we help? So the folks listening to the podcast today, what are challenges that you have or people that you're looking to connect with? What's, skill sets are you looking for? How can we, the listeners, help you move these businesses forward?
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate the time, Scott, around being able to talk about these and having me on about the different businesses. And I think my main focus right now is on the Valuation Pro side and space, and just connecting with any listeners who might be interested in what this tool can do for them and the pain points that it can solve um, for them, because that'll help us as we iterate the software, as well as really kind of creating a solid kind of customer base, or to get that feedback from them, or as we're getting off the ground and starting up, kind of really forming that base.
Yeah, well, we're happy to give you some feedback, at least on the Academy Fund side of the house, because we look
Yeah.
we look at deals every day, right? And
Yeah.
so our box is getting smaller and smaller as the years go by on the types of loans we want to do. But it's great to have.
Yeah. Great example. Yeah. I mean, partnering with you guys, or, kind of having that connection to where we can get plugged in with you as you look and analyze deals, sending them over, or logging into the user portal, and, you know, getting that underwriting done.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good stuff, Richard. Well, there's a lot of real estate investors in the network for sure that I'm sure would love to check out your product, who are looking at deals and can offer feedback and ways to maybe make the product better, and so that they can be a user. It's when it's ready. So, Richard, what's the best way for folks to reach out, and get in touch, and learn more about your different businesses?
Yeah, if you just go to my website, richardkenny.com, is kind of the best way to reach out to me. There's a place to, whether my phone number or email address, as well as to schedule some time on my calendar if you want to talk about something more specific. And then there's brief information about all our businesses and all the companies on that website that they can to go in and learn more about each one specifically.
Awesome. Good stuff, man. Well, we'll link to your LinkedIn profile as well in the show notes so people can reach out
Perfect.
and connect with you there. And yeah, look forward to seeing you on the next investor group call in July and around the 10X Vets community. And here's to an awesome second half of 2025.
It's crazy. It's already been, the first half's over. Last day today. So, but thanks, Scott. I appreciate it.